Welcome to the Wire to Wire podcast. As always, it's me, your host Yusuf. Now, without further ado, let's just get right to it. So, Netflix recently dropped a docuseries called Diddy: The Reckoning, and it was executive produced by 50 Cent. Now, in this four-part docuseries, what they were really discussing was essentially deconstructing Diddy's entire career from the time it started up until this recent legal controversy that he's been involved in. It came out on Tuesday, and I decided to binge watch it that evening when I got the chance. And I watched all four episodes that same day. Uh, Normally, I don't binge watch like that, but I found it to be very interesting. But another thing that I found to be interesting were people's reaction to it. It kind of seemed like there were people who were on two different factions. So, on one hand, you had people who were absolutely floored and disgusted with Diddy, and this documentary only further flamed those fans. And then you also had people who were upset weirdly with 50 Cent because they were saying that he was snitching. Now, what I don't understand is how could it be snitching if it's a docu-series on information that's already available to the public? It's not like we were told something completely new that we didn't know already. This is information that's already there. It's documented. It's in the court paperwork. It's stuff that's circulating online through major publications. So how is it snitching? But I want to get into all that stuff a little bit later. My overall thoughts on the docuseries is I thought they did a pretty good job in terms of, the chronological order in which they told it in. So the first two episodes kind of went over his early life as well as his career and all the stuff that he was kind of getting into. And then episodes 3 and 4 really discussed the legal issues that he started running into in terms of his most recent trial that he had. Now, I'm going to try to summarize and give information without giving any spoilers to those who are still planning on watching it. But essentially, I thought the good part that they did, like I said, was the chronological order in which the story was told. I also think they did a good job of getting some key players, if you will, who are involved in his career and in his life and being able to speak. So, for example, you had the former co-founder of Bad Boys who was there. You had some people who were under him, some associates, his former assistant. So you had people who were directly in his circle who are actually speaking and telling their story and retelling events based on how they saw it. So I thought they did a good job with that. Also, what I really liked, and I thought they did a good job of really bringing the narrative home, was getting access to that footage that Diddy was recording prior to his arrest. Now, why he decided to document that, I don't understand. Well, I do understand. There was a certain level of arrogance that he was operating with, and he thought that this is just something that's going to be an inconvenience. He's untouchable. He can fight it, and he'll ultimately win because that's kind of been the story of his whole career, right? He's always been able to get off on certain things. Pause. But that's really why he was doing it. What I found pretty impressive is that 50 Cent and Netflix were able to get a hold of this footage and be able to use it in this documentary or this docu-series, which really does not paint Diddy in a good light. But there were elements where they tried to be at times fair and balanced, believe it or not. Now, they also had disclaimers at certain things saying that he was only convicted of this, even though he was only accused of this. So that was just them trying to, dot their I's and cross their T's just to make sure that there's no legal ramifications from a defamatory standpoint. So that part I understood. Now, my only criticism of it, because overall I thought they did an incredible job in terms of the storytelling, getting the information out there, how they released the information, because it was in order. So it's not like they were all over the place. My only, I guess you could say, feedback was I found that there were certain parts that was very speculative. Now, in the docu-series, you're going to see that they have Tupac's cousin there. I can't remember his name. His name eludes me right now. But he was in the docu-series, and they did a good job somewhat showing that there was a connection. But The part that I thought they could have done better, it was making that connection stronger rather than leaving it kind of speculative. A lot of it was kind of people saying that now that I look back at it, it looks like he might have been involved. And then they discussed the whole Keefe D situation where Keefe D basically implicates Diddy in it. But I kind of just wish that there was something a little bit more concrete that absolutely connects Diddy to it, that there's no question that he was involved. A lot of it seems like it's somewhat circumstantial evidence, or like I said, speculation, that people are kind of looking at the information as they have it and they're just coming to the conclusion that he did it. But it's them piecing things together rather than everything already just being laid out and clearly showing Diddy was involved in these specific crimes, such as the passing of Tupac as well as the passing of Biggie. I wish they could have done more to really drive that part home and really show without shadow of a doubt that it was him, because I thought it would have really taken or elevated that docuseries beyond what it was already. I think the docuseries did a good job of showing the psyche of Diddy and how really he took advantage of those power dynamics of people, and he really was someone that abused his authority, abused those around him, and just was an overall disgusting dude. And you guys will see the stuff that I'm talking about. That part of it, I really wish they could have done more to really bring it home and show without a shadow of a doubt it was him. Now, like I said, the way that it was presented, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that any reasonable person looking at it would say, yeah, he probably did that. However, if we're talking from a court of law perspective, circumstantial evidence doesn't always fly. They always want something that directly connects that person to that crime. And I wish there could have been more elements of that. I think really one of the biggest problems, besides the fact that Diddy was a very perverse, sick, sadistic individual, is I think they're a telltale sign. And I really think two of them, and there's probably a lot more, but I'm just going to narrow it down to two for the purpose of this episode, of what was really Diddy's undoing. Number one, I think his desperation to want to be famous and want to be on really ended up being a hindrance. In the beginning, when they are retelling his career, they talk about his dynamic with Andre Harrell and how desperate Diddy was to want to become somebody, right? And so he would do anything that Andre Harrell asked, even sometimes doing things before he asked, because he was just that desperate to have an opportunity. And when he finally had that relationship with Andre Harrell, he eventually was doing the same thing with Clive Davis and trying to get up under Clive Davis, figuratively speaking, to have that opportunity. When you are so desperate for something, there are no limits to what you will do. And that is what opens the door to a lot of the sick, twisted stuff that Diddy found himself involved in. But also, too, a part that I found a little bit weird is even that whole dynamic with him and Andre Harrell, when he was saying, and they showed an old interview where Andre was saying, Diddy showed up to my new house before I even had a chance to move in and said that he'll be moving in with me. Now, that part to me seems a little bit odd, especially when you look back at Diddy's career and his life, and he has a tendency of having people live with him. Things that make you go, kind of weird, but you guys draw your own conclusions. I know I drew mine. But the second thing that I really took away from all of this is why you have to pay people. If you're working with somebody, right, in a capacity, whether you guys are business partners or you're getting a service from them, just pay what you owe. Don't delay your payment, especially if you can afford to pay. You never want to be the kind of person that has the money, but you refuse to give the person their money. Pay what you owe. The reality is Diddy had a tendency to not do that. They discussed that when he got Bad Boys, I believe it was under Arista Records, but when he got Bad Boys, he was taking the contracts that he learned through Andre Harrell, but he was making them a lot more tighter and a lot more exploitative. So he had a tendency of not paying his artists. That's a habit that he developed all throughout his career. All the people he ended up collaborating with throughout his career, from producers, he's not paying them. And it's a theme that you see all throughout the docuseries. And eventually, when you don't pay people, they develop a resentment towards you. A lot of the people who are in that docuseries, as they're retelling things, one of the primary problems is that he was not paying them and he's doing shady business deals. So yeah, that's going to make people develop a sense of resentment towards you and not think very favorably of you. And even too, when you think about how Netflix and 50 Cent got their hands on this footage, it's because Diddy did not pay the videographer. So if you're not paying the person who's filming you, then you don't have a right to access to that content because it's an exchange. I film you, you pay me, you get the footage. But if you don't render the payment, you're not going to get the footage. So that footage is the property of the videographer. And they struck a deal with Netflix to give them the footage, and they paid. So these are just two things that I'm taking away. There's a bunch of things that you'll gather from the docuseries, but really those are the two things that I realized that ended up playing a role in his own undoing. From the beginning, when he got his own record label and Bad Boys, the way he was doing business, it turned a lot of people off. It rubbed people the wrong way. Then along the way, all the filth and disgusting things that he was engaging in, right? And then him not paying people. So when you factor in all of these things and the fact that this guy was so desperate for attention, so desperate for fame, that he was willing to do anything and everything. Anyone who had a certain level of fame that he didn't have, he felt resentment towards and viewed them as a threat, right? So his desperation combined with his evil behavior, all of these things create the situation that he finds himself in today. So I think this docuseries, they did it overall. They did a really good job in retelling the events that took place and in how they portrayed him. And I don't even think that it was really a hit piece. I honestly think that they were relatively fair and balanced at certain points of how they told the story. I just wish that they could have done more to make that connection between Biggie and Tupac and the role that Diddy allegedly might have played, because I thought that would have made that docuseries, it would have taken it to a whole other level in terms of how effective it is and in how powerful it is. But the way it's constructed right now, I still think that they did a good job. And I think Diddy's at a point where even when he gets out of prison, I don't think anyone's going to want to stand beside him. They're not going to want to have anything to do with him. He is going to become persona non grata. He will be a pariah in the world of entertainment. I think his career is finished. His reputation is finished. I think he's burned too many bridges. He's hurt too many people, and he's gone away with too much for far too long. I encourage you guys, watch it and form your own opinion. But this idea that 50 Cent is somehow snitching, or people are getting mad at him because he's telling a story of what Diddy was doing, I think is ridiculous. Why are you guys getting mad at 50? Get mad at the person who was committing all of these offenses in Diddy. Diddy's the one that was doing it. 50's just telling the story. And it's not dry snitching. This is information that's already out there. This is stuff that we already know. This is stuff that came out during the trial. This is stuff that journalists have already uncovered. This information we know. There was a huge Rolling Stone article that came out. I believe it was early this year. It could have been late last year. But it was retelling a lot of these things. So this documentary just covers that. So I don't see how people can be mad at 50 Cent. Get mad at Diddy. He's the one that was doing it. But I encourage you guys, watch it for yourself, form your own opinions. The hate that 50 Cent is getting for telling this, it makes no sense to me. But that's all I got for you guys today. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and share with your people. You guys can also follow me and the podcast on social media. You guys can also check out my books. The link will be in the description. Until next time.